If I can have your attention, please, I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Thursday, February 28th meeting, Marion Board of Trustees. Could I have the roll call for Ms. Kim Davis, please?
I did that just so she was
Mr. Bryson?
Here.
Mr. Coleman?
here.
Mr. Dawes?
Yeah.
Dr. Baker?
Here.
Mr. Duncan?
Here.
Mr. Elmore? Mr. Freeman?
Here.
Mr. Dunn?
Here.
Mrs. Hartman? Here. Mr. Jackson?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Mr. Fields?
Here.
Ms. Leatherman?
Here.
Mr. Lee?
Excuse me. Mr. Lee had an excused absence, sorry.
Mr. Moore?
Here.
Dr. Kelly?
Here.
Thank you. Hearing that, for the record, the meeting's been notified in accordance with the requirements of Freedom of Information Act, and a quorum is present. You've had an opportunity to review the minutes. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Second. I have a motion.
Second.
Second.
Hearing that, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. We'll move on to committee reports. Have somebody calling in.
Frank?
Mr. Elmore,
Yes,
thank you. We just started
thank you.
the meeting. Only by 10 seconds. You're good, Mr. Elmore. Executive.
Thank you, Trustee Dozier.
Executive Affairs met this afternoon, reviewed a number of topics, some of which will be covered in the President's report. No action was taken. Hearing that, we'll move on to Academic Affairs and Accreditation. Mr. Jody Bryson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had a very good committee meeting this afternoon for academic affairs and accreditation. We heard a number of outstanding reports from our provost, our faculty chair, as well as schools and colleges. And I will tell you that there's just outstanding work going on at this university, and congratulations to all those reports today. I want to spend a little bit of time on admissions. Our spring 2019 enrollment is 3,374. That's a slight increase from this time last year. For fall of 2019, total applications are up 1% as compared to last year, and total acceptances are up 8% as compared to last year. 2 McNair Scholars have been chosen, and both will enroll in fall of 2019. A Scholarship Awards Day and orientation will be held on Saturday, April the 27th. Open houses are underway. These are conducted by the Office of Admissions, and plans are in place for 8 new freshmen and transfer orientations later this summer. And finally, just a note about December commencement. We had our first doctoral class present at that commencement, and if I'm understanding correctly, it was our largest commencement in our university's history. So congratulations to all of those graduates. Spring commencement will take place on May the 4th. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to development and alumni. Trustee Mark Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We also had a wonderful meeting today. We heard from Mr. Bridges and Mr. Doherty. They gave great reports. A couple of points of note. There were several new scholarships that the universities lined up with Florence Medical Alliance and CVS, 2 scholarships that are aimed at healthcare education students. Additionally, the Florence Symphony Guild Scholarship, which is aimed at a student in music education with a preference for a first-generation college student. There's several upcoming events that we wanted to make the board aware of. The Education Foundation Scholarship Reception is coming up on March 5th at 6 p.m. That's for both donors and recipients of scholarships. Arts International is scheduled for April 13th. The Swamp Fox Athletic Auction is scheduled for April 25th, and I think you'll hear more about that. The Chairman's Golf Tournament is scheduled for May 10th. And last weekend was homecoming. They had great turnout despite the weather. Over 1,000 people came to the grounds, and again, wonderful participation. We would like to recognize Tim Hunter, who served 6 years as the association president. He's leaving the post, but he's been working tirelessly on behalf of the alumni and represented them well at university events, and we just want to thank him for that. And also alumni awards tonight following the board meeting. We'll recognize 4 alumni for their achievements, including Dr. Randy Dozier at the PAC this evening. So congratulations, Mr. Chairman, and that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding that? Hearing none, we'll move on to financial affairs and facilities. Trustee Eddie Gunn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Finance Committee met this afternoon and provided the following information from Colonel Kispert. Revenues and inflows, fall revenue was finalized at $18.9 million, which is 100.5% of our revenue estimate. This was attributable to both undergraduate and graduate programs, exceeding revenue expectations. Spring revenues as of the month of January are $16.8 million, which is 98.4% of our estimate. The total operating revenue received thus far is $38 million. All appropriations have been received with the exception of the Center for Excellence appropriation, which we are working to receive from the state. Auxiliary and designated revenues received year-to-date are greatly related to student fee collections, and dining and bookstore contractual revenue related to the fall 2018 activity. Restricted funds are to be received are primarily due to normal delays in receipt of federal financial aid and for the spring semester. Capital and debt-related funds received are related to interest earnings on capital project funds held by the university and funds transferred to cover debt service for the athletic complex. Expenses. As of the report date, our general funds were 54% expended, which is in line with our expected percentage expenditure of 53 as of last year, so we're right on the same pace. Our total employee headcount is at 506 and FTE at 448.48. 4-year change is 13 headcount over the last 4 years and 8.62 FTEs. Financial aid is currently projected at $54 million, $54,024,588. This increase is aid from our November report is primarily due to substantial increases in estimated Pell, Hope, Life, and other grants and scholarships aid increases. And I might add that the current level of scholarship financial aid support for FMU is about 87% of the student body is receiving some sort of aid. We do have one item, resolution, Mr. Chairman, that we'd like to introduce, which has been approved favorably by the committee. And I'll read the resolution and we'll call for action after I'm concluded. The resolution for an increase in dining service fees, Resolution 01-19, whereas the university's provider for campus dining services, Aramark, has expressed a need for additional funding to meet ongoing operational expenses on campus, and whereas Aramark's request appears to be reasonable in the context of escalating costs and a desire to continue to improve services to the university community. And whereas the Board of Trustees for Francis Marion University regards a comprehensive array of dining services as critical to the health, well-being, and success of the university's students, faculty, and staff. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Trustees for Francis Marion University hereby approves a 5% increase to meal plan rates effective for the 2019 fall semester.
Thank you. So Trustee Gunn has made the resolution unanimous consent from the committee,
Yeah,
right?
that's correct, sir.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's passed. Thank you very
That
much.
concludes our report, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions, discussion for them? Hearing none, we'll move on to student affairs and athletics. Trustee Karen Leatherman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, with the Student Affairs, Daphne Carter McCants presented for us. Teresa's husband is ill, so she did a great job representing Student Affairs. And they've had a lot going on. They have this program called Freshman Focus, where students are paired with an underclassman mentor based on their major and their interests. And there's a series of 7 sessions focusing on professional growth and development. So that's ongoing through March. Their annual MLK celebration in January, over 250 faculty and students and the community members were involved, and Representative Carl Anderson from District 103 was the keynote speaker. And then they've got a program, or they had a comedy show that is focused on educating students about consent and building healthy relationships. So it was a comedy show, that C word, consent. And they did this in partnership with campus activity boards, Title IX committee, and athletics. And there were over 375 students in attendance. And they've done a talent show in February 20th at the FMU Performing Arts with 350 students, grand prize for $500, singers, dancers, and pianists, and spoken word performance. Throughout March, they've got other things happening, and one of them is this weekend, March 2nd. They've got their spring formal masquerade ball. So they've been very busy. We also heard from Connor Graham. She's a student body president, a senior in biology, and a very good, graduating this year, and a very good ambassador for FMU. She's been accepted at MUSC in a PhD program. So she did a great job informing our committee of a lot of the stuff that's going on. They have developed these informational sessions to allow students to be heard with student affairs, housing, dining, so that they can discuss issues that they feel like are important to the students, and the students have a place to go to do that. They also started doing, for the homecoming, they did paid career passports this year to try to get the students involved in all the events. So if they went around and they got their passport checked at all of the different events, they had an opportunity to win an iPad, and someone was that winner of that iPad. They've got the SGA elections. We all were sad that Connor's not going to be around. She's graduating, so she can't do it anymore, but those are coming up, and they'll have a couple of months to sort of work with those new officers. And then statewide, there's been an SGA movement for a higher education forum. And they are, I think Vincent Shaheen is coming to FMU to talk about a bill that's before the Senate now about that. So good things are happening in student affairs. And then Murray Hoxler talked to us about the athletics and where we are with that so far this year. Last year there were 195 student athletes, pretty much, about that number. Now there are 244, and that's a direct relationship with you may remember that we added JV programs in baseball and men's basketball. So that's the difference in the numbers this year. The GPA is about the same. It's always run about 3.01. It's 2.99 overall. Everybody know what happened last night in basketball, men's and women's? Okay, we beat Pembroke, and the men now have posted a 20-win season, and they will play here March 6th at 7 o'clock. We're currently 6th in the NCAA regional poll, and we have a really good shot at making it to the championship games. Women's basketball, a little tougher this year. They're 11-14. They did win last night. They have an opportunity. Really depends on if UNC Pembroke loses this weekend. They may get a berth, at least in the Peach Bowl tournament. And baseball, they're 10-5 overall, played 15 games. And they're 6-3 in the Peach Bowl conference. Softball is 12-4 right now. Men's tennis and women's tennis are pretty early, 4-2 and 5-2. And then men's soccer, they just named a new head coach. Let me make sure I get this right, Murray. Luis Rincon?
Yep.
Okay. And he comes to us from the Division II school, Ohio Valley University, where he had a pair of national tournament appearances. So we're expecting good things for that, for the soccer program. And then the 52nd member of the FMU Athletic Hall of Fame member is a 2003 graduate and former softball catcher, Laurie Mancari. And so she was back on campus for that, and everybody was excited about that. The auction for athletics is coming up. I think you may have mentioned too, April 25th at the PAC Center. They usually do about $20,000 and would like to see that improve. So we talked about, I think Murray's going to send a letter to all the board members of things that they may need or be looking for that usually do well, that we may be able to help get that for him or bring that to the table with someone else that we know. So we're looking for that letter, board members, about that. And that concludes the minutes from our meetings.
Thank you. Any questions, discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to the president's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the board, let me start out by just saying a word or two about our student government president, who this is her last meeting with us. And I know every year I sit here and tell you that this is absolutely the best student government president I've ever worked with, okay? But trust me this year, okay? Connor has been absolutely superlative. It's been a joy to work with her and her officers. Connor, stand up and let us.
Mr. President, I'm trying to remember where she went to high school again. Waccamaw High School in Georgetown County.
I think she spent 4 years trying to forget that. Connor is going to graduate school, and she's promised me that she will be a very loyal alumna. Let me, if I might, you have, ladies and gentlemen, you have in front of you a copy of the new table of organization of the university that will put into effect on the 1st of July. I sent you copies of this earlier, I guess in the month, with some annotated remarks underneath related to some of these things. First of all, let me recognize the first part of this. Colonel Kispert has indicated that he will retire at the end of this year. And I want to take a word and say, first of all, I don't want anybody to say goodbye to Jay. He still owes us 4 more months, okay? But let me say, between now and July, we will thank Jay most appropriately for those 18 years of honorable, dedicated, and diligent service that he's given us. And Jay, I want you to know how much we all deeply appreciate that. And we've got a few tricks up our sleeve on this one, so you guys will enjoy that. Thank you, Jay. So if I might, let me talk about some of the changes just very, very quickly that are reflected in that chart. And I'm going to focus primarily among the vice presidents. You'll see one change involves simply a change in title. Charlene has been the vice president for administration. We changed that title to reflect the planning responsibilities that over the last few years have become a critical part of Charlene's responsibility. Remember, Charlene leads our accreditation efforts every 10 years, and all of us remember that. We just got through another one this past year. So, you'll please note too that Daryl will be assuming the role that Jay has held. We're gonna actually change that title from that orthodox, old, traditional business affairs title to the title Vice President for Finance and Facilities, which I think more appropriately catches the scope of those responsibilities. Alyssa Waters will be taking the Vice Presidency of Enrollment Management. As Associate Provost, Alyssa has been working with and directing those three offices for two of those three offices for a considerable period of time. We'll add the third office, financial assistance, to Alyssa as well, and we'll move her role up to a vice presidency, something that she has worked hard for and clearly has earned. So we're excited about that. Teresa will move over to accept a role as the vice president for regional and community programs. This is something we've looked at doing for a long time, taking many of those community activities outside the foundation and putting them inside the university. So in the future, the foundation director can focus on the one thing the foundation director should be focusing on, raising money, without in any way compromising or undercutting all the things that we have going across the region and the community. And Teresa will do a terrific job in that regard. And then, of course, the other surprise here is that Chris Kennedy, my friend and dutiful historian, will be moving over and taking the vice presidency for student life, which will be a somewhat broadened role as a vice president for student affairs to include residence life and some other areas that are critically essential to the student experience on this campus. So those will be the men and women assuming new roles on the 1st of July, and Ms. Chairman, I am very, very grateful that each of them have been willing to serve in that capacity. I think they'll do a good job. I think they'll do a terrific job. One other thing I would note to my faculty friends here, so now we have 4 of 7 vice presidents in this administration who actually hold faculty rank. I would imagine that there's, and I intend to find out, but I would imagine that there's no university in this country that has more tenured faculty represented in administrative positions in its hierarchy than Francis Marion. To my faculty friends, I'll remind you, I told you we would get there one day, and we've gotten there before 20 years, okay? Who knows where we'll be by 23. Now, if I might, let me move on. I'd like to talk, Mr. Chairman, a little bit about our building projects going ahead. And Matt, you've got, thank you. We've the next 3 years, as a result of both chance and circumstance, we have a fairly active array of building projects coming in front of us. I'd like to talk you through each of those and let you know where we are in that effort. So Matt, if you'll flip the first one. So this summer we'll be renovating the village apartments. You know, those village apartments were first occupied, built in '79, first occupied in 1980. The first on-campus housing option, which was available to FMU students. We'll be doing all 12 apartments, the exteriors to include new siding, roof, windows, and doors. That'll cost us about $1.2 million, but when that project is finished by the end of the summer, we'll not only have those apartments which will look much more pristine, but they'll also be far more energy efficient than they are now. So it has the dual effect of beautifying the campus at the same time that we save the university some money. Yes, Ralph Davis assures me that by the end of the summer we can have, Ralph, are you here? Oh, it's a good thing. Okay. Ralph thinks we can have those buildings finished by the end of the summer, and frankly, it's gonna take a lot of work to get that done. But I think by the time that our freshman class enters, we'll have those apartments completely renovated. Matt, can we flip to the second one? So we got, this past year, we received all the funding that we needed for the completion of the Honors Center on campus, and we are now in the process of selecting an architect and construction team for that. We're doing a design-build approach. We're going to build that facility right next to Cawthon, north of Cawthon, between Cawthon and the parking lot. In that area where there's some pine straw and pine trees, that building will actually front both on the quad and it will front on Alumni Drive in front. So it'll actually have two front doors to it. And I dare say there's probably no one more enthusiastic about this than John Tuttle on campus, who's been waiting for this building for probably 6 or 7 years. So this will be a fine building. There'll be an atrium right in the middle of that building, and I think our honor students, our McNair scholars, and our international students will enjoy that facility very, very much. We anticipate that facility should be completed and opened by the fall of 2020. It'll give us about a year to build it from the time we select a contractor and an architect. And that building will cost $3.4 million to build, but I'll tell the board we actually have about 4.1 together for that. So we're riding on about $700,000 in reserves on that building if anything comes up during the course of construction for that building. Matt, could we go on to the next one? So we've been talking about the Bruce and Lee making a gift of land for some time. Matt, do this. Flip to the next one, if you will, and then we'll come back. Well, Bruce and Lee last week voted to transfer to the university 145 acres of land off Highway 327, which contains a 20-acre deep-water spring-fed lake. And as I briefed the trustees previously, we will put a conference center on that site, and we'll construct a freshwater ecology center, which will include laboratory space and classroom space for our biologists to work. We'll focus there on two things. We'll focus on freshwater water quality work at the same time that we focus on freshwater fisheries research. So it gives an altogether new research venue, research laboratory for our natural scientists on campus. It allows the university to benefit from a conferencing area and one of the most beautiful areas in the PD. And it'll also add some, about 40 additional acres of recreational area, which would be available for the community, not simply for the university, but for the community as well. I think it's a nice gift to us. I will tell you right now, the Ways and Means budget, there's $5 million contained in that budget for the construction of this facility. And I don't want to get ahead of myself in guessing what will happen in the appropriations process, but with $5 million in Ways and Means on the House side, I feel pretty good about our chances when it gets over to the Senate side. Assuming we leave this appropriation process this year with that money intact, Matt, if you'll go back to the first slide, we should be able to begin construction on this facility in fall and probably have it finished sometime between fall of 20 and spring of 2021. Larger window on that because clearly the weather's going to be more critical in terms of what we can do there. One other point I want to make about that lake, and we'll arrange to take trustees out to see it if you'd like. The lake itself sits below about a 25-foot bluff behind, and it's actually on that bluff that we'll build the conference center and the freshwater ecology center. That may be the only legitimate hill in the entire PD. I'm just kidding. But the view from that bluff down over the lake is exquisite, absolutely exquisite. And, you know, I can't say enough in gratitude about our friends at Bruce and Lee, but this is another area where They've taken care of the university, and they provide a wonderful gift that generations of our students down the road will have the opportunity to enjoy. Matt, could we move on to the next one, please? So, for a long time, we've been talking about the need to do something about the Smith Center. And we found a way, I think financially, to do that. We're going to put about $1.2 million into the renovation of the back part of the Smith Center for locker rooms and hydrotherapy areas and treatment areas and training areas for our athletes. That money will essentially involve simply an extension of our existing bond there for 3 additional years, and will entail absolutely no additional increase in the bond payment costs that the university pays. We anticipate beginning that construction probably in spring of 20 or fall of 20 at the latest, and that'll take roughly about a year to complete. That'll be a very, very nice addition. Now, I will tell you during the same time, and this isn't on here, but we will also go across the road and put $2 million into the completion of the field house. If you recall, when we first built the field house at the baseball complex, we didn't put in the visiting team locker rooms and some of the treatment and training rooms we wanted. So using this same bond leverage, we'll go across the road and we'll add on to that field house. And we'll do that in about the same time frame. So that project will involve renovation of the back part of the Smith Center as well as the area across there. And by the way, this will be the first major renovation of the Smith Center in about 3.5 decades. So it's time we do that. Matt, can we clip on? And by the way, that simply shows you the areas. You'll note that the majority of those old racquetball courts in the back part of the gym are about to go away. Although Tucker and I have traded a joke that the last person actually seen playing racquetball back there was Theodore Roosevelt. So it may be time to effect that change. And then finally, of course, as they say, the granddaddy of the set, we have the renovation of the old post office, the medical education complex downtown. We have $8 million in state funding to effect that renovation. I believe that money is sufficient for us to renovate that building and to completely upfit it with regard to what we need. And I would remind my trustees that building, as we increase the size, will provide additional office space for both nursing and medical students, as well as housing a behavioral health clinic and a speech and physical therapy intake program. And I think it'll also provide us additional room down the road. Dr. Kennedy assures me, this is Dr. Kennedy right before he leaves the provost's office to become the vice president for student affairs, student life. He pretty much assures me that he believes we'll have sufficient room for the therapies program in there as well. So for us, a terrific return on the investment of that building. I would remind each of you that that was another building that was gifted to us. The Bruce and Lee Foundation, the City of Florence, our own development foundation, and then of course our delegation, Senator Leatherman, Representative Lowe, Representative Jay Jordan, Representative Alexander, Representative Kirby, all went to work and worked diligently getting us that $8 million. There was the slight hiccup over the vetoes, but that came and went pretty quickly. So that's what we'll be doing the next 3.5 years. Yes, Ralph Davis is going to be a very, very busy man as we move down the road. A couple of other things I would mention very, very quickly. So you approved today a 5% increase in the university meal plan for those students that are electing to participate in the meal plan. Please note, we are not raising housing fees this year. We didn't raise housing fees last year. We're not going to raise housing fees this year. And I want to say at this point, I know it's still late February, but it looks likely that we will not bring the board a tuition increase this year. We think we can find a way to manage the appropriations we have in such a way so that we can avoid increasing the tuition on our students, either our existing students or our new students this year, and that would be gigantic. It certainly would be for the administration if we can find a way to do that. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the last thing I want to mention, we've already mentioned, I just want to remind you, alumni awards this evening. I believe, Darrell, the ceremony starts, or the reception starts at 6, is that correct?
Yes, sir. We'll be ready whenever this group gets down there, we'll be ready.
Right, and I don't want to embarrass him further, but I would just remind everybody that the Alumni of the Year is sitting to my immediate right. Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
only thing I'll say about that, I'd encourage you to go because they did a video, and many of my fellow board members that are sitting here I talked about, and I provided pictures, so you might want to see what's on the video, and you might be surprised, but it's a real honor. I really appreciate the award, and promise not to talk any more than 45 minutes in the acceptance speech. I didn't know what you told me.
You said 4.
Or 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, I got it.
Except for the PowerPoint.
Yeah, the PowerPoint. So, thank you. Any questions for the president on his report? It's a good report. A lot of stuff going on. It's good to see the growth and continued growth, especially downtown. Makes a tremendous impact. Francis Marion does on jobs, the economy, not only for Florence, but also for the state, the things that we're doing, especially downtown. It's very proud to be a part of that. Any unfinished business? Hearing none.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Trustee Leatherman mentioned that Teresa wasn't here because her husband's ill, and he's a local realtor. I got an email today saying that he was in hospice, so just ask that you keep them in your thoughts and prayers.
Sorry to hear that. I would remind you that March 30th, I think, is an important date. Dr. Wages, y'all know what that is? Your ethics filing. If you have trouble with that, feel free to call President Carter. He'll help you with that or direct you in the right path. Don't forget to file it. And I do have a piece of good news. Sometimes y'all actually listen to me, and it's hard to talk about without getting emotional, but, you know, we talked about donating to the First Generation Fund, right? That we had a challenge to exceed $20,000, and I want to thank the board that we've done that, and then some, due to the generosity of a number of people around this table. And I thank you because that money will be well spent, and some of us still have been a little slow to donate. I know who you are, and there's still plenty of time to do that, but
Write the check when I get back.
yeah, but I got to compliment you that you stepped up and you did that as a board and a group. I think that shows a lot of involvement on your part, both in time and money for this university and the initiatives that are going on.
Let me just say this, if I might, and I promise I won't become mucky on this, but if you really want to know the importance of the First Generation College Fund, we heard it today. It makes it possible for people like Farrah Turner to attend this university and serve in this community. That's the importance of the First Generation Fund.
Dr. Dozier, just want to make one comment on that also. You'd be surprised if you just ask people, but in conversation with a customer I had in my office in December, she's a retired doctor from Marion, and I just talked with her again 2 days ago, and she made sure that she wants the information because she wants to donate to that fund.
Great. That's great.
So,
So we, no new business? I think we've covered everything. There's no need for an executive session. With that being said, recommend that the meeting be adjourned. Call it adjourned. Thank you.